are these people?
Last week we talked about this a bit in regards to what's happening in Charleston. So Elbit Systems, you know about them, Collin? You heard about this company?
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
so
I did not know them prior to 2 weeks ago when um, the protesters, the Free Palestine Charleston protesters, confronted Biden at Mother Emanuel Church.
yeah,
Marcus, who we had on the show, wrote that statement that this
yeah, they invested
that
35 million in the relocation and recently opened its 135 square foot plant in Ladson, right?
right.
So you're probably wondering what that is, but here, let me go ahead and play this short clip that we have from that. Here we go.
Who are these people?
Who
I
are
did
these
read
people?
your statement, I think maybe a week or two ago, and you mentioned that Elbit Systems,
Elbit.
um,
Yeah.
Elbit, sorry, has, I'm just going to read it. So this is kind of your demands. An end to Elbit Systems, a facility manufacturing weapons the IOF currently uses to commit its crimes against humanity, operating in Ladson, South Carolina. Elbit Systems invested $35 million in relocation and recently opened its 135,000 square foot plant in Ladson. It receives tax cuts for its investment. A 2019 fiscal year report disclosed that company's extra revenue diverted 423 million from public schools across the state, disproportionately low income with mostly Black and brown students. And I thought, actually, we've been saying this on the show ad nauseum, but you kind of hit that home with that statement, is in terms of for Black people to kind of say, oh, we shouldn't care. That money that is being sent towards Israel can be going towards our reparations. That money could be going towards our needs here, especially for low income families here. So, our police are trained by the IDF. So the next time you're getting beat up by the cops, think of Israel. So there's a lot. So I think you brought up a good point, is that we have to be a lot more aware of what's happening globally, because that does affect us, usually financially, domestically as well. You want to say, Marcus?
Yeah, one more thing I just add on, and that's how we ended the apartheid in South Africa. It was like student organizers, and a lot of our older council members, I remember when I was young, I had a kafir too, and things like that. So it's like a lot of older people who had that connection with the movement, and they entered it through the South Africa, in the apartheid movement. So we've seen in our recent history even how us organizing and shutting things down can have a direct effect to end the apartheid in other places, and that's why we're fighting in the apartheid in Israel, because that's what it is. And if you look at what it's like, it looked just like Jim Crow, like the checkpoints. You can't go on this street, you can't go on that street. Like that sound like Jim Crow to me. So,
Yep. Well, thank you. Well, let's go back right to this story here. So this is by Huda Ammori, right? So Huda Ammori is a co-founder of the Direct Action Network Palestine Action, and has conducted extensive research and campaigns targeting British complicity with Israel apartheid. So have you heard of this group at all, Collin? Have you seen them around?
No.
Okay,
No.
so this will be fun for you. The UK government wanted to brand us as criminals for occupying and defacing the Israeli weapon maker's London headquarters and 3 of its factories. So you're wondering why they relocated, Collin? You're going to find out.
Okay.
So this is from Declassified. Luckily, Consortium is also publishing for us. So, during Israel's intensified genocide of the Palestinian people, I was sitting in the dock of a court facing 11 charges for disrupting the production of weapons used to murder them. Among the 8 of us on trial, there were 35 counts on the indictment to defeat. Whilst I was testifying in court, the prosecutor insisted that I took such actions out of choice This was not true. Yes, I took direct action out of my own free will, but there was no other viable option. Here's what led me to that conclusion. For over a decade, the UK has been a safe haven for Israel's largest weapon manufacturer, Elbit Systems. Elbit's business model involves manufacturing bullets, drones, combat vehicles, electronic warfare systems, and missiles, using the Israeli state's criminal attacks on Gaza as opportunities to test and develop their latest lethal inventions. The company was born out of a need to profit from and maintain Israel's brutal occupation of the Palestinian people. Since October 7th, Israel has killed over 23,000 Palestinians, 9,600 of them being children, injured more than 58,000 people, destroyed over 70% of Gaza's civil infrastructure, and displaced over 1.9 million people. Elbit CEO Bashal Maklalis boasted that the company is crucial to the ongoing genocide and has been thanked by the Israeli military for its services. So those services involve Elbit providing its new Iron Sting missiles, which leave chemical burns on killed and injured Palestinians, unlike anything doctors have seen before. Those missiles were first used on Palestinians during Israel's assault on Gaza in May 2021. Interesting that that's before October 7th, Collin, which Elbit said was a pre-operational test. Israeli pilots have also admitted using Elbit's Hermes 450 drone to monitor and drop missiles during the ongoing operation in Gaza. The drone is often described as the backbone of the Israeli Air Force. In 1992, Elbit formed UAV engines at Lynn Lane Shinstone, a factory previously owned by Norton Motorcycles. This expertise was transformed into manufacturing engines for Elbit's Hermes 450 drone. So there they are. Look at that. Looks familiar. Before embarking on direct action, I believe that with facts, reason, and popular movement behind us, would be able to shift our government and public bodies into divesting from and imposing sanctions on Israel's apartheid regime. This belief led me to starting the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign at the University of Manchester, and later into researching all UK universities and councils' investments into companies which profit from the colonization of Palestine, and mobilizing the relevant groups to push for divestment. During my previous job as campaign officer at the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, I was involved in a lobby day of MPs where locals would push their representatives to endorse a two-way arms embargo on Israel. So here we go. Solidarity from Manchester with the Elbit 8 on trial for dismantling Israel's weapons trade in Britain.
On trial in London, the Elbit 8 for the campaign that they started against Elbit Systems. They are pleading not guilty because they are not guilty. Elbit Systems is guilty of genocide. Elbit Systems is guilty of war crimes. They are the criminals. Elbit, we stand with the Elbit 8. 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 We stand with the Elbit 8.
Look at that, Collin. No one was paid to be there.
So again, this was pre-October 7th.
Yes. Well, ongoing stuff from these people. So
ongoing, but this is not recent. This was last year.
Yes. So these efforts were in conjunction with many pushing for Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party to support an arms embargo. She's trying to point out how many times they went to politicians.
Yeah.
Right. So, which eventually, for the first time in political history, became a 2019 manifesto pledge. Okay. So that's what they managed to do, was get Jeremy Corbyn to support this. However, all our efforts fell short of bringing about material change. The issue wasn't just that our pleas were falling on deaf ears, it was that we were appealing to the very institutions which were responsible for driving the colonization of Palestine. The issue wasn't just that our appeals were falling on deaf ears, right? with the democratic process failing to create change. I'll read that again. With the democratic process failing to create change, and with Elbit continuing to manufacture Israeli weapons on British soil, I was left with two options: continue with tactics which were failing, or take direct action to shut Elbit down.
Yeah.
I and many others chose the latter. That's what led to the formation of Palestine Action, and ultimately to me being in a dock for 6 weeks on trial in Sharesbrook Crown Court. The trial. The 8 of us were on trial because the state wanted to brand us as criminals for occupying and defacing Elbit London's headquarters and its weapon factories in Kent, Oldham, and Shinstone.
Wait. They were on trial for that.
Yes. Yep.
I thought it was more serious than that. So they just put graffiti on their buildings.
You'll see. So
Okay.
the Elbit 8 were sick of appealing to the government to stop killing our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Let's see what they have to say.
Companies like Elbit Systems, Israel's largest private arms company, openly market their weapons as battle-tested because they've been tested on Palestinian civilians in Gaza.
There's been occupations of their factories, there's been damage to their factories, and at no time have they carried on with the prosecution. A recent case they dropped once we released information of what we knew about their company and how dodgy they are. And we believe that's because there's other things that could be found out and would come to light.
Elbit is complicit in war crimes. It's financing, it's supplying and arming Israel's brutal regime against the Palestinian people, and it's happening here.
They make 80% of the Israeli drones, and those are the sort of drones that are used against unarmed Palestinian people to commit war crimes.
We've come together to form Palestine Action, a network of activists and groups across the UK to take action against companies complicit with Israel's apartheid regime, to fight for the Palestinian people and to fight for their rights here in the UK.
You know who you're working for. You support terrorism. You support violence.
You see grandma out there?
Yeah.
Like, so don't
The
tell me
UK
it's
has
just a youth thing.
Yeah, hold on.
Yes.
Just want to read.
There you go.
The UK has licensed 376 million pounds worth arms sales to Israel since 2015. The UK government admits it's likely that UK-made arms have been used against Palestinians.
It's likely. Yep. Yep. Go to PalestinianAction.org for more info. So, we knew that no matter what the final result was, we'd already succeeded. Palestine Action was now a global movement posing a genuine threat to Elbit global expansion and manufacture of weapons for Israel. This trial was an opportunity to continue the fight within the courtroom and make it clear that we pled not guilty because Elbit is guilty, not those who act to stop them. For this prosecution,
I just wonder.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I just wonder if this got media coverage.
Some, not much.
Yeah.
You know, like
figured.
those of us who are in the know about them. Like I know Misty was, when people were out in the streets and like blocking traffic and bridges, they were like, no, go Elbit Systems, South Carolina, like
Right.
go there, not like real people's daily commutes, although I'm kind of down for that too, but whatever. For the prosecution, Ofer Meishnar, chief of Elbit's global security, submitted a statement on the damage we'd caused to the firm's UK division. Our defense team demanded Meishnar come in person so we could put our questions to him. In response, the Israeli government wrote a letter stating Meishnar was of crucial importance to the Israeli government at the time and was not allowed to leave its jurisdiction. This summed up the forces we were up against. Instead of Maishar, Paul M., Elbit UK's new chief security officer, was called to give evidence in the trial. He had only been working for Elbit for 9 months at this point. So here we go. Snares Books Crown Court was filed with solidarity as the trial of the Elbit 8 began. The 8 are on trial for actions against Israel's weapons trade across the first 6 months of our movement.
Everybody!
We know him. Recognize that face.
So again, this was in 2022.
Yeah. Yep. Well, this was 2023.
Okay.
November 13th.
But okay, well,
yes.
This trial
was taking place during like the biggest parts of Palestine's, atrocity. So they had started this before.
Before that, right.
Right. So although he claimed to have little to no knowledge of what Elbit UK makes, of course he fucking, bro, you're the security chief, like, bro. Anyway, he was insistent on distancing its operations from their owners, Elbit Systems Israel. He even went so far as to claim he had never seen Elbit's main website, elbitsystems.com. As my barrister, Audrey Mogan, put in her closing speech, even Elbit doesn't want to be associated with Elbit. So each of us took the stand, testified to why our actions against Israeli weapons trade were justified. While he was being interrogated by the prosecutor, Robin Licker, one of my co-defendants, pulled a rubber bullet out of his pocket. He explained how that bullet, made by Elbit subsidiary IMI Systems, was shot at him during a protest in Palestine. That bullet missed him, but another one shot 15-year-old Mohammed Tamimi in the back of his head, leaving him in a coma for 3 days. Nicola Stickles, on trial for occupying the roof of UAV engines for 3 days alongside myself and 3 others, pointed out that our being on trial was a joke, given Elbit's role in an ongoing genocide. So here's one of their other actions. So, painting up this place red. I mean, again, this is what they're on trial for.
Headquarters in central London.
Yep.
And this is their
landlords, officers in Mayfair, LaSalle Asset Management. If you aid war criminals, you are war criminals. Right? So, this is the kind of stuff they do. Did anyone look hurt or harmed in any of those? We've seen 2 of them now.
Right? You care more about property than people. We know this, Reef.
And this is what you had to pay a pressure washing person to come out and pressure wash the paint off. Yeah. Like, okay. Oh, well, what is that? $50 an hour? So the judge, this is what's funny. So the judge didn't appreciate her calling out this hypocrisy and urged her to respect the court. After explaining my Palestinian and Iraqi heritage on the stand, the prosecution asked me a litany of ridiculous questions. Who was the governing body of Palestine? Who was supplying weapons to Hamas? Were Jewish students scared after I passed the BDS motion at the University of Manchester? God. Throughout the trial, the prosecution weaponized Israeli propaganda against us, asking if we thought to campaign for the rights of women and homosexuals in Palestine. Okay, we've covered why that's bullshit. What Allah Akbar meant, where we drew the line, and if there were bombs on the horizon in Palestine's actions plans for Elbit. How fucking dare you? They're literally calling out Elbit Systems, who make bombs.
And accusing
you want to
them for
ask
having bombs.
them if they're gonna fucking plan on using anything. Fuck you. Fuck you. Despite all us going into detail of how we were aware of our legal right to prevent a greater crime, acting to save lives and prevent the further destruction of Palestine, the judge only allowed the jury to consider our innocence based on our defense consent. We argued that the owners of the buildings were targeted would agree with our actions if they were aware of the full extent of Elbit's crimes. After 5 weeks of evidence, the jury deliberated for a week on the different counts we faced. In total, we were acquitted on 13 counts against us. Richard Barnard was convicted on 1 count of criminal damage against Elbit's Oldham factory after he said he didn't believe Elbit, who owned that factory, would consent. Shortly after delivering the guilty verdict, the jury asked if it could be changed. Okay? It could not. The jury could not come to a majority decision on the rest of the counts against us, leaving the prosecution to decide on whether they will retrial us on those charges. Ultimately, we walked in facing varying amounts of prison time and received none. I was told if convicted on the charges facing me, I would be looking at 4 to 5 year prison sentence. Yet we all walked out as free people, and 2 of the 8 were acquitted of all charges. An incredible result when facing the British state's wrath for having stood on the right side of history. Look, there's that Iron Sting missile system right there. It looks like Israel to me. Whilst our state's complicity in the occupation of Palestine left me with no other viable option than direct action, the personal sacrifice incurred pales in comparison to the consequences of Elbit's weaponry being deployed against the Palestinian people. Not only were our actions effective in disrupting Elbit's weapon production and building a global movement, it allowed us to expose Elbit's crimes in court. To top it off, 3 companies ended their links with Elbit during the trial. It took a 2-year campaign for Fisher German to end their property management of UAV engines, 2 months for IO Associates to stop recruiting Elbit staff, and a day for Naked Creativity to end their web hosting services for Elbit's Leicester factory. Yeah, Leicester. It's like Worcestershire. It's just one of those weird British words, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. Thoughts?
I wish they kind of explained. Well, we know, so that's why they moved from the UK.
One of. Yep.
To the US.
And we paid them to do it. So yeah, fun, right? That's why I mean, I was alluding to it last time. We didn't have much time to go into it, so I didn't want to go. Right. I was just wondering if you knew about these people and what they've been doing. This isn't their only action. No. They've thrown bricks at windows and gone into buildings, and like they're real motherfuckers out there. So,
you know what was interesting, and I think this was very cool for them to mention. They did things the right way at first. It wasn't like they started just doing this willy-nilly. They went through the democratic process, talked to their leaders, and basically being like, "This is what's happening.
Right,
you need to do something."
And they said it went nowhere.
Right.
They said we tried
so then
that.
It was like, right. So there are times when you could be cool, and there are times when you need to act a fool in order to get results. So this is what happened here.
And if you're an activist here in the States, talk to them. See what they can do for you, because I'm sure there's some locations here that you can, and I've already seen some of that. People are already at those locations and have done stuff, but like we can do more.
Well, here's the thing, like, and I'm not promoting like damaging property in that way. I would not say for you to do that. I would always say, use your power or use whatever power you have to appeal to your council, at least in the States, like your council member, like those who are in power above you, use whatever means you can to appeal to them first. And I think that's very important that these protesters did that first. So, you know, it's only when that doesn't work, then you do. But the thing is, like, it wasn't like they did this just randomly. They did it knowing we have the means to do it, but also they were prepared. They were well prepared for what they knew was coming to them. So they came with the receipts. So it wasn't just random. And I think we don't talk about that often enough, especially independent media for many of us. It's like, well, we have to do this action and then what? Like, so this shows that they needed time to prepare and make sure everything was kind of copacetic with them, knowing that they were going to trial and knowing that they have to explain their case.
Well, and
how many
people you know talked about the fact that they went to trial or that they were going to trial? Like, not many. So
right. So that's what we call tactics, which Kwame Ture has talked about constantly while he was alive. We need to be smart, but we also need to talk about strategy, you know. So and we don't talk about that often enough. So I think this is a good example of one method of how to do that. But I think most importantly is you have to at least make the attempt to use your leaders in a way to at least make the case to them, even if you know that they're not going to do shit. But at least you can say, at the end of the day, we tried that way and our politicians didn't listen to us. So this is why we're doing it in a shitty way that you don't necessarily like. But it was just funny that essentially they went to trial basically for defacing property. Like, to me, it would have been that serious for them to go to court for that. Or at least have it be like as major as it was, but they won. So
and all,
you know, you can make the argument they won regardless because they got some media attention on it. You know, but
well, let us know what you think can be done. Leave that in the comment down there. You know how this works. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And, you know, please share. We appreciate all the help we can get. We're heavily suppressed, so any little bit helps. And make that little subscriber number go up. You can do it.